The wind carried the dust of the high desert in long, whispering sweeps that brushed against Daniel Mercer's weathered face as he stepped out of his cabin. It was just after sunrise, that amber hour when the world glowed soft and new, the heat not yet awake. His property stretched far across the land his grandparents had settled. Rolling earth, cactus, scattered juniper, and the rusty fence that groaned whenever a storm passed. He heard the sound before he saw anything, something like metal rattling, followed by a faint, pained groan. Daniel froze. Coyote sometimes got too curious, and the cattle fence wasn't forgiving. He started walking toward the noise, boots crunching dry earth. Then he stopped dead. A woman, thin, her long dark hair dust-covered and tangled, sat slumped against his fence, one wrist locked in an old metal shackle attached to a post. Her clothes were torn at the sleeves, not from violence, but from travel, and her face was streaked with exhaustion. She lifted her head as he approached, eyes wary, dark and sharp. "I'm not here to hurt you," Daniel said, palms up, making his voice steady. She blinked in disbelief, breath shuddering. "Do whatever you want," she murmured, as if expecting cruelty, as if already preparing herself for it. Something inside him tightened. "What I want," he said softly, "is to help you." For a moment she looked confused, distrust flickering like the shadow of a bird's wing. Daniel crouched beside her, studying the shackle. It wasn't his. He'd never seen it before. Someone else had chained her there. He swallowed hard. Who did this? She didn't speak. Not immediately. Her gaze slid away to the open horizon, where the land stretched indifferent and endless. Finally, she whispered, "Men who wanted to scare us off our own lands. I ran. They caught me, then lost their nerve when they heard trucks coming. They left me here." Daniel felt anger crawl up his throat, but he kept his voice even. "You're Apache?" She nodded faintly. "White Mountain Apache." He nodded back, a small gesture of respect. Now that he looked closer, he could see the exhaustion in her trembling hands, the sunburn on her cheeks, the dried blood around the metal cuff. "Let me free your wrist," he said gently. Her eyes widened with distrust again, as if kindness were a trick. But she didn't resist when he reached into his pocket for the bolt cutter he had found in the barn last week, while reorganizing. He positioned the cutter around the metal, careful not to touch her skin. "Hold still," he said. She flinched at the snap, but the metal parted cleanly and fell to the dirt. Her hand dropped in her lap, red and raw. "You're free," he said quietly. But she didn't move, didn't run, didn't even stand. She looked at the broken shackle, as if unsure what freedom meant. Daniel offered her water from his canteen. She stared at it like it was something rare and precious. After a few seconds, she took it. He watched her drink, slow at first, then faster. When she lowered the canteen, she wiped her mouth and studied him with new eyes. "Why?" she asked. He shrugged lightly. "Because no one should be left like that. Not on my land. Not anywhere." She seemed to weigh this answer. Then she nodded once, a gesture both dignified and weary. "My name is Ayanna." "Daniel," he replied. "Let's get you inside where it's cool." She hesitated. "If they come back, they won't get within a mile without me knowing." His voice held a certainty he hoped she believed. "And if they do, they'll have to answer to me." Ayanna considered this, then stood with effort. Daniel offered his arm, not touching her, simply offering, and after a long moment she used it for balance. Inside the cabin, she sat at the table while he filled a bowl with warm water and set out a clean cloth. She dipped her injured wrist into the bowl and sighed, the relief as visible as breath on winter air. "You live alone?" she asked. "Most days," he said. "Cattle, horses, the land. That's enough for me." "You speak like someone who's seen trouble," she observed. He glanced at her. "Maybe that's why I recognized it in you." Ayanna's expression softened, though only slightly. "My people's land surrounds this valley. We've had trouble with outsiders who think no one will care if we disappear." "Well," Daniel said, voice firm, "I'd care." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people learning each other's edges. Ayanna cleaned and bandaged her wrist, then ate the food he set before her, beans, tortillas, and some leftover stew. She ate slowly, carefully, as though remembering what trust tasted like. When she finished, she looked toward the window. I should go home. My family will worry. I'll drive you, he said immediately. She shook her head. Too dangerous for you. Those men might still be out there. All the more reason not to send you off alone. Ayanna took a long breath. You're stubborn. So I've been told. Outside, the sun was climbing. Daniel loaded water, blankets, and a rifle into his truck. Not for aggression, but protection. Ayanna climbed into the passenger seat, stiff from her ordeal, and Daniel drove toward the distant mountains where her community lived. The landscape shifted as they traveled, desert giving way to greener brush, the scent of pine drifting in. Ayanna pointed out certain landmarks, each one carrying a story. She spoke of her grandmother's teachings, of the sacredness of the land, of the history buried in every stone. Daniel listened, truly listened, and she noticed, as they neared the reservation boundary, a group of her people appeared, searching parties on horseback. When they spotted her in the truck, relief rippled through them. One of the riders, an older man with silver in his hair, rode forward. Ayanna, he said, voice tight with emotion. Father, she replied. He dismounted and pulled her into a careful embrace. Then his gaze turned to Daniel, assessing. Daniel met his eyes steadily. She saved herself, Daniel said. I just cut the metal. Ayanna's father studied him a moment longer, then nodded. You brought her home. That means something. Ayanna stepped beside Daniel. He treated me with respect. Daniel tipped his hat. Glad you're safe. She looked at him, long and thoughtful. You are welcome on our land anytime, Daniel Mercer. He nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. As he drove away, he looked once in the rearview mirror. Ayanna stood with her family, watching him go, not with fear anymore, but with a quiet gratitude. And Daniel knew that somewhere along this dusty stretch of the world, two histories had touched and changed, gently, unexpectedly, and without chains.